The debate on medical marijuana continues in South Carolina. One Senate bill once again made its way to the State House, where a former version of the bill died in 2023. Senator Tom Davis has been working to pass a medical marijuana bill for the last decade. His latest version of the Compassionate Care Act now faces debate as well as amendments in the House. But can cannabis help with senior care? Dr. Benjamin Kaplan wrote the book, The Doctor-Approved Cannabis Handbook, is focusing on the groundbreaking impact of cannabis treatments for seniors 65 and older, and he joins me today. And Dr. Kaplan, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's get right to it. So we're talking about cannabis and seniors. So how do you think cannabis treatments are changing the game in healthcare for seniors over 65?
The over 65 population is the dominant cohort represented in healthcare and the most in need of guidance and protection. Cannabis has shown to improve safety and improves efficacy for this population that really is in the most need. This is the group that is covered most effectively and managed sort of entirely by the government. If you think about it, Medicare, Medicaid, these are covering over 65 crowd. They're the ones who are suffering the most with the ailments of aging. And guess what? Cannabis is really geared to fix and help and manage the ailments of aging, whether it's depression, anxiety, sleeplessness, and medication overuse. Those predominantly affect people over 65.
I'm glad you brought up medications. So what's the positive impacts of cannabis on medication use in those seniors?
I have the great fortune at Seed Clinic to see over 18,000 people. And in my career, I've overseen 285,000. And what trends I've seen are that 70% of people who embrace cannabis under guidance, so they know what they're doing, they're not just throwing spaghetti on the wall, 70% or more get off of other medicines. That's dramatic. And of course, pharmaceutical companies are seeing that. They're starting to get involved. A lot of people think there's a conspiracy that they're against it, but no, they want people to get better, just like I do. And the truth is, people who embrace cannabis under supervision do really well.
So what are some of those challenges to accessing informed information about cannabis care for seniors?
The number one challenge is information is hard to come by. People think that they can go to a store and learn from the desk clerk, but the truth is there's no medical training behind medical dispensary counters. Many of the physicians out there aren't engaging with patients. They're not collecting data. They're not following people. It's not treated as a traditional medical specialty. And it's for that reason I published this book, the Doctor-Approved Cannabis Handbook. It's written for everybody to read, including doctors, but including everybody else. And every single claim that I make in the book, talking about the benefits of cannabis, how to access them, what they mean, how they can get you off of other medicines, all of that stuff is backed with a claim. Each single claim has a reference right in the back so everybody can test my facts and challenge them themselves.
So let's talk about some of those challenges that seniors face, let's say Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cancer, end-of-life care. So can you kind of give us some tips as far as how cannabis treatments and therapies can help folks dealing with those illnesses?
Sure. A lot of people see cannabis as a pill. And if you have an illness like dementia, or you have an illness like cancer, that you need just the right match of a pill to kill that problem. And that's not really how illness works. Those of us who are suffering with illnesses have a problem, and that manifests in physical symptoms, but we also feel really sad about it and we feel depressed about it. Maybe we're not sleeping. So there's a lot of different systems that are wrong or hurting us at the same time. And this kind of suffering begets or needs addressing with a multimodal system, a system that touches many different systems better. But cannabis is a very different approach to medicine. It's more like exercise or sleep or nutrition, which all touch the whole body. When someone consumes cannabis, what we see over time is that cancer cells are affected, but regular cells are not. And we see people having less metastasis. The cancer goes away more quickly, depending on what the cancer is and what the regimen is being administered. But also those people sleep better and they feel less stressed and they feel like they're able to conquer it. There's a little bit more hope than the side effects that we see from traditional medicines. So it's a whole person package. It's a holistic view of medicine manifested in this plant, this natural medicine.
And there are folks who are in my age group who have parents who are aging. How can we have those conversations with our parents, open conversations about cannabis treatments with them?
One of the chapters in the book is all about end of life planning. What can we do to make sure that our priorities are met, not by doctors who want us to not thrash in bed because the medicines are so bad, but to feel comfortable surrounded by family and have a death that's comfortable for all of us. That theory applies to the rest of our lives. Those of us who are still young and thriving should have comfortable lives. We shouldn't be in chronic pain. We shouldn't be stressed out about jobs that are difficult. We should have a way to navigate that stuff that's different than just having wine or drinking beer or consuming other substances that are currently legal. And now it's time for me to pass it on. The Doctor-Approved Cannabis Handbook is available everywhere books are sold, including Amazon.
All right, Dr. Kaplan, thank you for joining us today. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.